Hey, what's up? I'm Scott LaRock, welcoming you to the 2020 Crop Over Souvenir. Joining me to bring you all the sights, sounds, fun, and festivities is Allison.
Thanks, Scott. The Nation Publishing has been publishing the Crop Over Souvenir for many years. With no festival this year, we're going to present to you the 2020 Crop Over Souvenir, the digital series.
We're going to be chatting with the likes of Allison Hines, RPB, Edwin, and so many more as they tell us what Crop Over means to them.
Conducting the interviews for this year's Crop Over Souvenir is the nation's very own Andrea King.
On this episode, we chat with a man who seems to be getting younger as he ages. Blood. Let me go!
Anderson Mr. Blood Armstrong has enjoyed a successful career in music spanning over 3 decades. He takes us back to how he began in National Calypso in 1983.
Yeah, I started in 1983. I should say 1983 on the Crop Over stage, but of course I was in the school choir. I was doing stuff at school. I was in school competitions, Calypso competitions. Mm-hmm. So I started, from a very young age performing and being in the dramatics and that kind of stuff. But then I came on the scene. I met Gabby in 1983 at Clapham Day. And I approached him all as shy as I was. And it started from there, entered the Gabby's First Timers Calypso tent. And from Gabby's First Timers Calypso tent, then I went on to Richard Stout Teen Talent Competition for 2 years. After Gabby's First Timers in 1983, which I won my first preliminary, and I think I placed around 5th or so in the entire tent competition, where Punka won and was able to then go straight to the finals. Once you won the Gabby's tent competition, you got an opportunity to perform in the big tent, the battleground, and therefore got judged. And Punka that year also got judged, and he went all the way straight to the finals. And as you would know,
it rained out. I remember that.
It was a really good year.
Was that the year you did Sport Billy?
The year I did Sport Billy was the following year, 1984, when I then, not knowing what to do after Gabby's First Timers tent, met Mr. Fingal at law school and asked him about joining the Untouchables, and I did Sport Billy, and Sport Billy was it was a phenomenon, because I wrote the song after having a conversation with Red Plastic Bag and Matt Fingal, and I left Bayfield. On the way home on the bus, by the time I got home, I called Mr. Fingal back and said I have the song, and I wrote the song on the bus, came home, sang it to him, and from there it was a go. First night in the tent, putting me on at number 1, because obviously young fella just out of school, not out of school, still in school, and having no idea of what to expect from me. I went on, performed the song powerfully, and got an encore, and then got another encore, and then got another encore, all on the first night. And every single night for the season, I got encores. I remember that night after I performed Sport Billy, El Ponzi went on after me, and I think it was probably during intermission or at some point in time when Mr. Fingal was backstage. El Ponzi said, Mr. Fingal, a word with you, please. He said, you see that young fella there? As long as he in the tank, don't put me on after he again. But that was that was a really good season for me. My first year and in Untouchables, and my second year in the Calypso arena. My third year now, 1985, just 16, 17, I had mistakes and speak my mind, and I made it all the way to the Calypso finals. Again, some fantastic stuff happening. By the mid 2000s, right?
So
the band separated, and I started focusing on myself, started producing albums, etc. And from 2006, really focusing on Mr. Blood, I was in the finals every year since I decided, let me start doing this. And in 2006, I made it to the finals, came 4th. 2007, the controversial year where I was beat by a quarter of a point, and I just kept coming, I kept growing and keep doing things and making it to the finals. Then all of the other competitions I decided to also focus on. So I was like a staple in the finals every year for about 10 years straight. And well, of course, I won my first Party Monarch in 2001. I then won my second Party Monarch in 2010. I won the Sweet Soca in 2013 and the Party Monarch along with Mikey that same year. So and that's a really, really good. Of course, I won the road march as well on 2 occasions, Foot on Fire, and with Roll It as well.
Mr. Blood follows a long line of impressive Barbadian calypsonians, some of whom have had influences on his career. He respectfully pays tribute to them, especially the one we said farewell to in December of 2018.
Being right here at Kensington and doing this interview with you here, right in front of the right excellent Sir Garfield Sobers statue, it brings me back to some of the dreams that I've had, because I mean, I have a lot of respect for Sir Garfield Sobers, and I have a lot of respect for the guys that came before me. Red Plastic Bag. I don't even say Red Plastic Bag so much because we came at about the same time, but you know, he's still before me. Then there's the Red Plastic Bag, and you can't miss out. You can't leave out Romeo, Destroyer, Griner, Viper, and of course, when you actually get a chance to work with these guys, like I actually got a chance to work with like one of the best, one of the greatest, you know, a legend himself, Sir Don. It is overwhelming. When he came to me and brought a song that somebody said, you know, I think you should take this to Young Blood to do, or Blood to do, you know, and I was like, I was taken aback. I was like, really? Somebody actually thought that I was good enough to do a Sir Don song? And we developed a relationship. We worked together, and he understood me. I understood him. He understood what I wanted to sing about and how I wanted to approach each topic. And because I am not one that I wanna list the problems that are in the society. I want to be able to say, well, this is a problem we have, and by the end of the song, I have a solution, or you know, something to offer to say, well, this is how we could or try to fix it. And he understood that, and he always made sure to bring, you know, those type of songs for me.
Blood has remained a staple in Crop Over since 1983, and it was that exposure to master songwriters and performers, as well as his willingness to learn from everyone, that kept him relevant.
You got to keep listening, and you got to keep learning, and because we are accustomed to doing things like I'm accustomed to doing things a certain way in the 80s. The 90s came, I had to change and adapt, you know, and try to do things the 90s way. When the 2000s came, I had to do the same thing. I had to not only deal with new people that I started to work with, but I had to teach them, and I had to learn from them as well. So all of the new language, all of the new moves, all of the stuff that was happening in the 2000s, you know, I had to also learn and adapt to, and try to keep on top of my game, because if I wanted to be in this business, I couldn't just decide, well, you know what, I'm going to keep doing things a particular way. I had to keep changing and evolving, just like I encourage any young person who's coming into the business now to not stop learning. You have to continue learning and keep evolving all the time.
The accomplished artist and producer explains the importance of Crop Over to his 36-year career, and makes an interesting point about the state-produced competitions.
Contributing to the festival then propelled me to the wider world, because at that point in time, everybody was excited about what was new coming out of Barbados, etc. And all of the promoters want, as long as you were prominent in Crop Over, they looked towards those guys and they pulled them out, and they did shows, you know. You had the Barbadian diaspora in New York, London, thirsty for all of the new stuff that was happening. Griner and Gabby was on top of the game at the time with you know, Boots and Mr. T and Hit It and those classics, and they just kept coming. So I came at a time right in the middle when, you know, it was real hot, and people were looking towards Barbados to pull for that energy and to do major shows abroad. So I mean, Crop Over did a lot as far as I'm concerned for my career in the early days. I think, you know, coming down into the 2000s, things kind of changed, because once upon a time, whereas if you won the road march, or if you won the Pic-O-De-Crop crown, or you won a competition, you would be the first person to be selected, you know, for any outside gigs. The dynamic has changed somewhat, and it is completely different. So sometimes I think not even the competitions themselves do much for the artists, although it does well, I shouldn't say it doesn't do much for the artist. It doesn't do much for the artist outside of Barbados. I think, it still gives, because as far as winning the Calypso crown is concerned, when I won in 2018, it was my proudest moment. It is the crown that you always wanted to get.
Yeah.
It is the crown with the highest and the most esteem. You look. It is the crown that it does not matter who you are or what you like in Barbados. Once you've won the Pic-O-De-Crop Calypso crown, you are it. It is, you've kind of made it. It is validation.
Yeah.
So, I mean, as far as still not being able to generate or create or get shows or even more income from winning the crown, it is still held at high esteem.
Blood is usually the first to release music for Crop Over, and for many years he religiously released his compilation album on May 1st. The coronavirus changed that too.
Now this year, no Crop Over festival, but like I said earlier, we hold Crop Over in our hearts, and we started working on music for the festival since the end of last year. So what I decided to do, in fact, I had decided from early that I was not going to actually put out an entire compilation that I usually do each year, and I was not even going to do the official launch on May the 1st like I usually do. So what I started to do is I started to focus on myself. I decided I was going to, despite not having a Crop Over, I was going to put out an album, because the music is bigger than any festival or bigger than any artist. So I decided, put out the music, get it out there, and ship it out to the world and see how it's going. So I did all the work. So the people decided, what about the other artists? So I decided to put together, an album which includes, myself as well, Chrissy D, Sim Simmer, Be More Specific, Brian Bumper, who else? We got Betty B on there, Queen T. So a lot of songs are going to be released still. An album with at least 15 to 20 tracks on it will still be released for 2020. For the summer, we don't have a Crop Over, but for this summer season, you can still sit back or take those songs and use them in your workouts, because a lot of people are working out online and still going to they're not assembling in the gym in numbers, but they can still use the songs for that and enjoy a real good feeling this real good summer.
Well, here's hoping that you enjoyed watching this episode as much as we enjoyed bringing it to you. Keep watching the Crop Over 2020 Souvenir, the digital edition, as we talk to some of the men and women who have helped to make the Crop Over Festival what it is now.
We already have, keeping it simple.